Have you ever wondered what the Pope actually does every day? Behind the ornate walls of the Vatican, behind the crimson robes and centuries-old traditions, is a man. A man with a schedule, a mission, and responsibilities that stretch far beyond Sunday Mass. This is not just any job. This is a day in the life of the most powerful religious leader in the world, the Pope. So let's break it all down. It all starts early. Around 4:30 to 5 a.m., the Pope wakes up. Not in a palace dripping with gold, but in a modest suite on the second floor of the Domus Sancti Marthi, a simple Vatican guesthouse where he's chosen to live instead of the opulent apostolic palace. Pope Francis, for instance, rejected lavish apartments for a humble space. He believes in simplicity, leading by example. His first moments of the day: prayer, meditation, silence. He spends the first hour or so in personal devotion. He reflects, reads scripture, and prepares his heart and mind for what the day might bring. By 6:30 a.m., he attends, or leads, Mass in the chapel of the guesthouse. Sometimes it's a private Mass. Sometimes invited guests, Vatican staff, or even pilgrims attend. But for the Pope, this daily Mass isn't just a religious ritual, it's sacred fuel. A direct line to the divine. And during his homily? He often speaks off the cuff, heartfelt, unrehearsed, and deeply personal. After Mass, there's another moment of silence. Then breakfast. Forget luxury meals. The Pope's breakfast is simple. Coffee, fruit, maybe a roll with jam. Pope Francis has even been known to serve himself, rejecting waitstaff when possible. He reads through the Vatican daily reports. Sometimes global news. Sometimes letters from bishops. And always, updates from Catholic communities around the world. At around 8:00 a.m., the real work begins. The Pope may be a spiritual figure, but he's also the CEO of a global organization with over 1.3 billion members. Think about that. He's got bishops, cardinals, schools, charities, hospitals, and parishes from every corner of the earth counting on him. Each morning is packed with meetings. Some are routine briefings with Vatican departments, known as dicasteries. Each dicastery oversees a major area: education, doctrine, communications, interreligious dialogue, and more. He also meets with cardinals, especially those from the Curia, the Vatican's administrative body. They bring reports, seek advice, propose new initiatives, or raise concerns from around the globe. And it doesn't stop there. He might host a visiting president or prime minister, a group of scholars, or even a delegation of nuns working in refugee camps. Yes, before noon, he's already made global decisions, heard international reports, and prayed for the sick. And that's just the morning. As the clock strikes 12 in Vatican City, the world doesn't slow down, and neither does the Pope. While many would take a long lunch or midday break, the Pope's afternoon is often just as intense as his morning. After a brief lunch, usually around 1 p.m., he might rest for a short while. But even that rest is purposeful. Because by 2 p.m., it's back to business. And this time, it's global. The Pope isn't just a religious figure. He's also a head of state. Vatican City is the smallest country in the world, yes, but its influence is enormous. Presidents, ambassadors, kings, queens, and prime ministers regularly request private audiences with him. These aren't casual chats. They are intense conversations about war, peace, poverty, human rights, and climate change. From the Amazon rainforest to the war in Ukraine, the Pope is expected to take a stance. To offer wisdom. To serve as a bridge between faith and politics. Each meeting is carefully prepared. Briefings are read. Speeches may be written, or sometimes scrapped entirely for a more honest dialogue. But diplomacy isn't just done in person. Each week, the Pope also signs documents. Encyclicals. Apostolic exhortations. Decrees. These shape doctrine. They guide bishops. And they influence how over 200,000 parishes around the world operate. And when he's not issuing formal guidance, he's sending personal letters to persecuted Christians, grieving families, or imprisoned priests. A single papal letter can restore hope in the darkest places. Then there's the unseen work. Confidential briefings. Urgent decisions about church finances. Updates from missionary territories. Crises in developing countries. Legal matters involving the Vatican Bank. When time allows, he takes a walk through the Vatican gardens. Here, amidst ancient trees and fountains, he contemplates. He prays again. For peace. For the Church. For the world. Often, he gathers his trusted advisors. The Council of Cardinals, a kind of kitchen cabinet. Together they wrestle with the Church's most pressing questions. Should women be allowed to take greater roles in leadership? How can the Church respond to abuse scandals with honesty and justice? How does the Church remain relevant in a digital, secular world? These aren't easy topics. But the Pope engages head-on. With courage. With compassion. And with a clear vision, a Church that listens, heals, and serves. By late afternoon, he's responded to crises, comforted the broken-hearted, hosted world leaders, and made decisions that could affect billions. But his day isn't over yet. As the sun begins to dip behind the Vatican, and the crowds in St. Peter's Square begin to thin, many imagine that the Pope's duties must now be done. But that's far from the truth. It's early evening in Vatican City. Around 6 p.m., the Pope takes a short break. Sometimes it's a simple walk in the courtyard. Sometimes a moment to sit quietly and gaze out at the horizon. But even then, he's never truly alone. Because the weight of the world never quite leaves his shoulders. Every day, the Pope receives thousands of letters. From orphans. From widows. From prisoners. From families in war zones. And while he can't answer them all personally, he reads many. He prays over them. Sometimes he responds directly. Yes, the Pope sometimes calls people. Randomly. Quietly. Without cameras. One evening, he phoned a young woman in Argentina whose fiancé had died in a car accident. Another time, he called a man who had written about his depression. To the Pope, people matter. Individually. Personally. Dinner is usually served at 7 p.m. It's modest. Often soup, a vegetable, and some fruit. Pope Francis eats alone or sometimes with fellow priests or visiting bishops. But never lavishly. Never with pomp. After dinner, the Pope returns to reading. He reviews documents he couldn't get to earlier. He may draft a homily. Or prepare for an upcoming address. And sometimes, he writes prayers. Not all are published. Some are deeply personal, meant only for his heart and God. Then, he reads the Bible. Every night. A chapter or two. Not for performance. But for communion. For comfort. For strength. At around 9:30 p.m., the Pope makes his way to the private chapel once more. He kneels. Not as a celebrity. Not as a politician. But as a man. A sinner. A servant. He prays for the world. For those who suffer. For the future of the Church. And often, with tears in his eyes, he prays for the courage to keep going. By 10 p.m., the lights in his apartment go out. The Vatican quiets. But the Pope's day echoes on. Across continents. Across hearts. Across prayers whispered in every language. You see, when you ask, what does the Pope do all day? You're really asking, what does it mean to lead with love? To live not for power, but for purpose. To carry the hopes of billions on your back. While kneeling every night to carry it all back to God. This is a day in the life of the Pope. Not just a man in white. But a man in service. From sunrise to silence.